Prologue. Over the past few days, Amos McElhaney had stared death in the face so many times that he hardly blinked anymore. What harm could once more do? To be sure, rumor declared the Takhran's fortress impenetrable. The tunnels below Mount Eifer did not even exist, if idle tavern blather was to be believed, and the pit itself was mere legend. And no sane man with a price on his head would dream of walking bold-faced and unchallenged through the torchlit gateway into the festering heart of Seren Vroy. But sane had never been a title Amos McElhaney claimed. The thought brought a smidge of a grin to his lips, though it was more grimace than grin, as he tramped at the heels of a Kelari squad through the tunnel-like entrance, trying to ignore the murder holes glaring down from above. Rejecting his wave rider heritage, leaving the vessel that bore his mother's name and could have been his, setting off to follow a wandering Songkeeper, on the surface none of it made sense. And following Artair still, through betrayal, slaughter, and capture, to the very depths of ruin? It was beyond insane. It was blind, unreasoning devotion, the kind that always got a man killed. But in his vast experience, he had never yet met a latch that couldn't be jimmied, a chain that couldn't be broken, or a defense that couldn't be cracked. Not with a skilled hand at the dirk and a purpose strong and deadly enough to guide it true. Purpose he had aplenty. He had but to brush the cold pommel of the sword strapped to his belt to be struck anew by images he would do anything to forget. The panicked faces of his comrades, the woods ablaze by the traitor's hands, and Artair dragged, unresisting, into the night. The death screams echoing in his ears were incentive enough to find a way. Even more so when the way in was as simple as robbing a dead Kelari of his armor. Once through the gate, his borrowed squad marched off to their barracks with the stumbling, stiff-limbed strides of men weary for the hearth. But Amos hung back under the pretense of shaking the stones from his boots. He halted in the center of the castle bailey, fighting the need for action that burned in his gut, and sought to gain his bearings first. Charging blindly ahead was the game of fools and simpletons, and Amos McElhaney was neither. Chaos ranged about him, and yet it was an orderly sort of chaos, orderly enough that a lone Kelari standing idle was sure to draw attention. He must determine his path, and quickly. Wattle and daub buildings surrounded him on all sides. Ahead, wide steps mounted to the entrance of an enormous keep that melted into the side of the mountain behind, Mount Eifer. Somewhere beneath its ponderous bulk sat the pit. The word alone summoned a sheen of sweat to his brow, fogging his vision in the confines of his visored helm. To the pit! Captives are sent to the pit. So much he had gathered from the dying Kelari before a stroke of his dirk hastened the man's passing and freed his fouled armor for use. Amos blew out an uneven breath. The pit it was, then. And pray Emron he was neither wrong nor too late. If that was where they had taken Artair, then it must be his destination too. It might have been blind, but devotion was not to be denied.